Okay, so I am officially going to start recording. And before we get to today's work, obviously, that I want to go through, I just quickly want to say something about paper one. First of all, well, the Afrikaans people sent me photos of the exam paper, and when I looked through it, I was actually a little bit surprised because overall, it really wasn't a bad paper. It was actually quite, I don't want to say easy paper, but if you compare it to other years, it was definitely easier. Okay, now for map work, I'm going to say something about that right at the end. Just something to take note of in your preparation for paper two. Okay, so I am quickly just going to share my screen. Okay, there we go. So obviously, please make use of Mind the Gap for your study work. Same as in paper one, please use it for paper two. There is, however, a few things that I do want to mention regarding the notes for paper two. Okay, so first of all, for rural and urban settlements, I gave you guys 3 notes that I uploaded. Settlements as a whole that just went through like the normal stuff, rural settlements, and an urban settlements on its own. Okay, now a lot of the work is in Mind the Gap, which is obviously the one that I will be going through today, but please remember to make use of the notes as well for them. Okay, there are certain stuff that I feel is maybe a little bit more in the notes than in Mind the Gap, because obviously they do not take all of the content and put it in. They summarize a lot and they only take the important stuff. Okay, so then for the key concepts, once again, like always, please make sure that you please go through the key concepts. I know there were quite a few questions in paper one that if you knew the concept, you would have been able to answer the question. Okay, so I'm not going to go through that because obviously that is study work. Okay, so I forgot to highlight this. So function. So the difference, or one of the big differences between rural and urban settlements, is the functions. Rural settlements tend to be unifunctional. So that means they tend to have one main function that they focus on. And obviously, these are going to be part of the primary economic activities and they are going to focus on things like forestry, fishing, farming, mining. But typically, what tend to happen, they have one primary economic activity that occurs in the area. A town develops around that, and mostly that everything is connected to it. In urban settlements, this is obviously not the case. They tend to be multifunctional. So, in other words, they have a lot of functions. So, there you can have secondary activities such as factories and manufacturing, and tertiary activities such as services that are being delivered. You will well tend you tend to get more of your quaternary services or quaternary activities also in your urban settlements. Okay, so make sure that you know the difference between the two. Then something that they really like to ask is simply the size and complexity. So obviously they won't typically ask you to range it from the most smallest part of a rural settlement all the way to the biggest part of an urban settlement. What they will do, or what they will most likely do, because what from stuff that they have done in the past, they will ask you, is a hamlet a rural or an urban settlement? That's one way. They can also ask you that you have to identify what the settlement is, or they can mention one of these and then obviously just once again ask what it is. But for this is really your memorizing work. Your smallest type of settlement is a farmstead, then it is a hamlet, then a village. These are the only rural ones. Then you have a town, then a city, then a metropolis, and then a conurbation, and then a metropolis. These are your only ones that you need to know. And once again, it's parrot work, so make sure you basically memorize it. Then rural settlements, land use zones, obviously going to be a little bit different. Now, a lot of our rural settlements are agriculture. One of the biggest ways in which South Africa gets an income is through agriculture. Okay, and for this, you do need to know the difference between commercial and subsistence farming. Okay, subsistence farming is typically when you will have a family that grows crops and they basically grow just enough to feed themselves and sometimes maybe a friend or maybe a friend or maybe a friends or maybe neighbors, but they don't do it on a very big scale. This tends to be very, very small. Then, if you have commercial farming, this is obviously the exact opposite. They typically do it on quite a large scale and then they sell the crops to make profit. But it is obviously a very big
Yeah.
difference between the two. Okay,
I just
then commercial
listening.
farming can be divided into a few different
Yeah.
types. First one
Hello.
is stock farming. So this can be animals such as cows, chickens, sheep, pigs, and so on. Crop farming. So this is when they cultivate land and obviously they grow crops, and this can include maize, wheat, fruit, vegetables, and so forth. And then you have a mixed farming, and this is where they have a combination of both stock and crop farming. Okay, then the next one, let me just quickly see here, our rural settlement patterns. We have nucleated and
Nice.
dispersed.
Yeah.
Nucleated
Close
is
the
when you
curtain.
have your
You wanna get the
houses or your
ID? Stop playing with
structures
it, like.
that are very close to one another. Okay, dispersed patterns, they are very further away from one another, so something that you can typically think of here is farms.
You
Okay,
stop playing with you. You think I'm playing with you? You think I'm playing with you? Huh? You think I'm playing with you?
okay, okay. Sorry, I should just quickly go into mute you. Okay, then for your different types of settlements, there's obviously going to be advantages and disadvantages for both. You need to know this. If they were to ask something like this, it can be a bit of a longer or even a medium type question where you actually have to explain a little bit more. For a nucleated rural settlement, so once again, everything is close together. The advantages. First of all, there's going to be more interaction with people because everything is a lot closer to one another. Ooh, go. Then it's going to be safer as once again there is more people. Then you can share ideas on how to solve a problem, and obviously there's going to be a lot more ideas to get from. Then you can share the cost of tools and machinery. The disadvantage of this is that typically you're not going to get a lot of privacy. There's also going to, or there can also be arguments as to how to solve a certain problem, how to share the profits, because obviously you can't take everything for yourself, and you cannot use tools or machinery when you want to. Actually, no worry, that's completely fine. Then the next one, dispersed rural settlement. Once again, this is where the structures are quite far away from one another. So the advantages of this is there's going to be a lot more privacy because the houses isn't as close together. Then you can make your own decisions because you're really the only one there. Then all the profit you own or all the profit is your own, and you can have better use of the machinery and tools. The disadvantages, there's not going to be a lot of interaction because you are so far away from one another. It's not going to be as safe for the same reason. And you have to pay all the cost yourself. So if something goes wrong, it's on you and you alone. And obviously, it's difficult to share ideas when you have a problem. Then the reason for the location of rural settlements. Now, this is true for rural and urban settlements, but remember, this is one of our concepts that you do need to know what it is. The site of a location refers to the exact piece of ground that the settlement is found on. So this, if you go in literal sake, this is going to be your coordinates. Then the situation of a settlement is going to refer to the settlement in relation to the surrounding environment. So what does the soil look like? Is there water? So once again, in relation to the environment. Okay. Next, let me just quickly go up here. The site of a rural settlement, there's obviously a few factors that are going to affect this. Now, I remember when we had this lesson, and I know I said this quite a few times, is that a lot of these factors are not as important today as they were 100 or even 200 years ago, such as water. In the past, you had to be relatively close to water because obviously you need water for a lot of things in your daily lives. And they didn't have the infrastructure we have today. Today, you can go to a tap in your house, turn it, and there is water. They did not have this luxury. in the past. Okay, then the same for fertile land. That's a little bit more important because obviously you can't really just get it from somewhere else. You can put stuff into the ground, so there's more nutrients and stuff, but the ground quality is still important. Then grazing land, building materials, and fields such as wood from a forest. Then the situation of a settlement. So once again, what is going on in your surrounding area? So certain places, if we have a river and we know that this river overfloods, then if a settlement were to form an area, they typically wouldn't have formed it right on the riverbed. They would have looked for a place that's a little bit higher up. And there's obviously like a dry point settlement and a wet point settlement. Then on the north-facing slopes for warmer temperatures, in the thermal belt for warmer nighttime temperatures, especially with your valleys, because obviously this can have a massive impact. And if you have a road, since that can help with accessibility. Okay. Then we could go on rural urban migration. Now remember what this is? This is simply when people move from a rural area to urban areas. Now remember the exact opposite is also true. You can have urban rural migration. So whatever one is written first, that is where the people are moving from. Okay, this is where push and pull factors come in. Now if they were to ask something like this, they can ask it to you straightforward to just give a few. Or what they do like to do is they will give you a case study. I know a few years ago we had one where a woman had obviously married someone and they had a child, and the husband went away for work while she stayed behind and took care of the child. Then the husband died, and then she had to move to a larger city and obviously take the child with her. And then they asked a question about certain push and pull factors. Now, in this case, there's obviously going to be certain push and pull factors that they are kind of leading you in direction to mention. Okay, but if you roughly know how it works, this should be quite easy. Okay, now push factors tend to be negative. So these are going to be the factors that are going to push you away, that's going to push you away from rural areas because it is not good there. This can be stuff like poor education, that is given, poor healthcare, not enough jobs. Let's see what else is there. Not very good service or facilities. Anything like that it's not really good. It's gonna push you away from the area because you don't really have a future there. Pull factors, on the other hand, tend to be a lot more positive. They tend to pull you in because they want you to move to urban areas. These are going to include better jobs or more jobs, better healthcare, better education, better facilities, better services delivered. So obviously that is going to make a massive difference. But it all depends on the question that they actually give you. Okay, then strategy for getting people to stay in rural area. Obviously, it's not really the best when too much people moves from rural to urban areas, because then the people that is left in the rural areas, they are not going to be able to always keep the economy or the local economy afloat, and then they struggle. And typically what tends to happen, it is women or typically the older people that is left behind. Okay, so there are stuff that a municipality or even a country can do to help make this a little bit better. First of all, it's going to be stuff like provide better education, provide better healthcare, make sure that the services that are delivered are actually good quality, make sure that, or try to make or create more jobs, create better jobs for people in the area. So all of that is obviously going to be very important to entice people to actually stay there. Okay, then something that they can also do is to improve roads to and from small towns, upgrade facilities in small towns. Town councils might find a way to advertise their town to attract more tourists, or obviously if they want people to come and live there. But a lot of these is a way to stimulate a local economy, because obviously that is very important. Then urban settlements, that's obviously the big part. Now, once again, a lot of these not as important as it was in the past, but you still have to notice. Okay, so I'm not going to go through that again. The types of urban settlements, this is something that you can memorize as is. And once again, they can ask specifically about a type of settlement, urban settlement, or they can give you something that you have to identify. Okay, now there are three main types of urban settlements. There's central places, trade and transport towns or cities, and specialized towns or cities. So the first one is your central place. This is typically where you have a town that surrounds or supplies the surrounding area with goods and services. Okay, now this is where you can split it into low order goods and services and high order goods and services. Now remember the difference between these two. Low order goods and services are things that you need quite regularly. So this is going to be stuff like bread, milk, doctor for some people might say it's higher. But take bread, for example. Most people eat it regularly, so you would need to buy it on a regular scale. Okay, so here you have a smaller threshold population. This is the amount of people that they need to actually make a profit. You do not need that many people to buy bread in order to make a profit. Okay, and then several shops and services actually provide this good or service. So there's a lot of competition going on, which also keeps the prices low. High order goods, obviously the exact opposite, or services. These are things that you don't need as often. This can be something like a health spa, or if you go into a medical sense more, something like a specialist. You don't have to see a cardiologist every single month, maybe for some people, but the majority of people don't. Obviously, this is going to have a larger threshold population, and there's not going to be a lot of places that actually provide this service. So you might need to go to the next town over or even a larger city to be able to access some of these goods and services. Okay, then we have our trade and our transport towns and cities. These develop where transport routes meet. The first one, our bread of bulk. This is where the transport changes from example from sea to land. Then we have our junction. So this is settlements that develop at an intersection of two main transport routes. And lastly, gap, point of access at a physical barrier like a mountain pass, like the Durans at Hex River Pass. Okay. Then the last type of urban settlements is specialized cities or towns. Now, most of these develop because of one main function in the area. So, first one we have mining, for example, Welkom. Then we have education, for example, Grahamstown or some places like Stellenbosch. We have industrial, so Secunda, resort, such as Margate, and commuter or dormitory, such as Soweto. Okay. Then we can click on. Okay, I already explained this, but we just spoke about. Oh, I always forget of the English one. I have to go to the right. Otherwise, let me just quickly check I didn't miss anything. Okay, I spoke about that, so I think I'm good. Okay, we spoke about. Okay, actually find there. So then we're going to speak about structures of urban areas. First of all, urban profile. So you don't need to worry. You won't be asked to actually draw the urban profile, which is obviously very, very good. But you do need to know where certain zones are likely to occur. Okay, so typically right in the middle, in the place where you have the biggest and the largest buildings and a lot of traffic, that tends to be your CBD, your central business district. Then outside of that, you have your transition zone, then your low income housing, your suburban shopping center, your suburban office park, your industrial zone, your high residential income residential, and your rural urban fringe. Okay, now for this, we are going to, let me just quickly go here. In your notes that I uploaded for you, there we go. Please remember that you need to know where they are and what they look like. They might ask you something like this that you actually have to mention in your exam. Okay, now when we start an urban profile, we take note of a few things, such as the height of buildings, the density of the buildings, as well as the land value. So if you just look at the city from the outskirts towards the ins or the outskirts, from the center, sorry. So the height of the buildings decrease as you move away from the city center. The density is also going to decrease the further you move away from the CBD. The reason for the decrease in density and height is because land value decreases as you move away from the city center. A lot of businesses want to be right in the middle of the CBD because they're going to get a lot of foot traffic. People are going to obviously know where they are, and they think that it's good, but a lot of times it is actually better to move out of the CBD for a variety of reasons. Okay, then if you look at the city from the outskirts towards the center, here obviously the buildings are going to increase in height as you get to the center, as well as the density. Then land value. Your highest land value is going to be the CBD. As you move outwards, it is going to decrease. Okay. Then, just quickly check here. Here we go. Then we have our urban street patterns. Once again, you won't really be asked to draw this, but you will need to be able to identify them and talk about them. Okay, so we have 4 street patterns for urban settlements that you need to know. The first one is gradient street pattern, and this is probably the one that unfortunately is the most common in the entire world right now. Okay, so this is where the roads intersect at right angles, form rectangular blocks, and this is typically found in the CBD as well as older cities. Some advantages of this particular street pattern is that it's easy to find your way around. If you know that your destination is in a particular direction, it is going to be quite easy to go in a certain direction, and then the last part you just need to figure out. So, but it's not as easy to get lost in this particular street pattern. Then the land can obviously be divided up quite easily, can be converted into one-way streets, ease traffic congestion, shorter distance to travel, but well, little wages of land. But there are a few disadvantages of this pattern as well. The first one is traffic congestion. Because they stop at every single intersection, this is going to obviously cause a little bit of a problem. Then there's going to be more accidents or prone of this type of street pattern because of the intersections, and it is quite boring. It's not a very fun layout. Okay. Then we have a radial street pattern. Now this is going to be where you have center points and all the roads spread out from that particular center point. Now this is going to be found in some very old cities like Paris in Europe, or actually Paris in France, or Kimberley in South Africa. Now this is something that recently they have started to implement into more cities, but it's still not the one that the majority of urban planners prefer. Okay, some advantages of this particular street pattern is that it really helps with traffic. Then all roads lead to a central point in town, and obviously so you know roughly where you are going. Then disadvantages. Traffic jams are quite common. Traffic is slow because there's not a lot of shortcuts really, and space seems to be wasted with this one. Then we have our planned irregular street pattern, and this is actually the pattern that modern urban planners like the most. Okay, now this street pattern have a few intersections, not a lot, and they tend to curve a lot. They are also found in more modern cities and newer suburbs. Then a few advantages. It improves the flow of traffic. The roads are quieter because there are obviously fewer intersections and less through traffic. Interesting suburb layout because of unexpected turns in the road. And one of the most important reasons is that it actually accommodates the nature of the topography. It actually works with the earth, or not with the earth, but with the topography, how it looks. Okay, then the disadvantages, it can be easy to get lost. If you take the example of your destination is in a certain direction, you can't guarantee with this particular street pattern that if you drive in a specific direction that you are going to get to your destination, because you don't really know which road you always need to take. And then it is not easy to subdivide or expand. So typically once it is settled, it's going to stay like that. Then we have unplanned irregular street pattern. So with this, as you can see, there's not really a clear design or plan with these roads. And it is also typical of something you would see in an informal settlement. The advantages is that it is unique. No unplanned irregular street pattern is ever going to look the same. Then the disadvantages, it can cause traffic congestions, it's unplanned, there's no order, and you tend to get lost quite easily here. Okay, then I'm not going to go through all of this. Actually, I have time, I'm going to. The first one is the central business district. So now this is all the zones. Now for this, you need to be able to know what is going on in the zone. And obviously they can give you a specific case study, and you will also need to be able to identify it or maybe ask or answer a few things about it. Okay, so the first one is our central business district, or our CBD. Now this is going to be found in the city center. It's going to have the highest land value. It is the most accessible for the most part. It has the highest building density and the tallest buildings. Then we have our transition zone. So this is typically what you get right outside the CBD. This is a zone of mixed and changing land use. So this can be anything from residential and commercial. And this is often a zone of decay. Landlords are not maintaining the area of buildings, and working class residents live here in high density flats or small houses. Like I told you guys when we actually did this work or did this specific class, is that unfortunately what happens if I am a landlord that owns a building in the transition zone, I am most likely not really want to want to give out money to maybe renovate the building now, because I know that in a few years, or even if I sell it, I am most likely still going to make a massive amount of profit. Sorry, I forgot the word for a moment, because the land value is still high here. A lot of the places, or a lot of the time when the CBD starts to expand, it goes into a transition zone, and obviously a lot of people buy places up, they renovate them, more people move in, and then once eventually they will go back and this whole process go over. But unfortunately, a lot of landlords don't want to spend the money now because they're still going to be able to make profit in the future. Okay, then we have our light industry. Now, this is often located near the CBD or in planned industrial estates. Then found near road transport, as raw materials are often transported more easily in this way, and little noise and air pollution created by these industries. Remember, with the difference between light and heavy industries, they both produce stuff, but the type of things that they produce is obviously very different. A light industry might be something like a bakery. Yes, they produce stuff, but they don't really create a lot or as much air pollution. They don't really create a lot of noise pollution. So obviously that's going to be a very big difference than something that gets made in a factory, for example. Okay, so sorry. So obviously that is a difference. Or not, I'm now just going to do the heavy industry. So heavy industry, this is typically found on the outskirts of the town because this is typically where the land is the cheapest. Then it's found near major road or rail networks for transport of raw materials and finished products. It's often low-income housing that is found nearby, and a lot of the time this is where the workers come from. There is a lot of heavy air and noise pollution, and they try usually to get it on a flat land near a water source, and it's obviously going to be cheaper for construction as well. Then middle to high income residential. So this is the part of the residential areas that are going to be far away from the CBD. They tend to have a good view. There's a lot of townhouses and big houses, larger properties as more space is available, so the houses also isn't so condensed, and there tends to be good service and facilities, including recreational areas. Then you have your low income residential areas. So these tend to be closer towards the CBD. The buildings are very close together. There's fewer facilities and poorer services, small blocks, and a lot of times the buildings looks very similar. Then we have informal settlements that tends to be on the city outskirts, and a lot of the times there is no formal service delivery, so no roads, sanitation, water, electricity, or schools. Then there tends to be high poverty levels, high crime rates, houses built out of plastic, wood, zinc, whatever type of material they can get. There tends to be unhealthy conditions and very dense housing with unplanned street patterns. Okay, then the last two, you see, I remember there was two, otherwise I would have gotten the other page again. Okay, the green belt or the recreational areas. So most times there's no buildings in these areas. Sometimes they would maybe construct a large building that they use for a particular purpose or obviously for a bunch of ones, but a lot of the times this is just green areas with no buildings. Okay, so this is obviously used for public gardens, parks, and sports fields. Area has a lot of trees and lawns. It helps to clean the air in an urban area, and it helps with to calm traffic and reduce noise level in the area. Then we have our rural urban fringe. So this is right on the outskirts of your urban settlements. So this is where you have certain things that are urban and some that are rural functions. So urban functions like rubbish dumps, airports, cemeteries, and golf courses. Land use starting to change from rural to urban as the city expands. Large properties are often located here because the land here is a lot cheaper, less developed areas and plots and small holdings. Obviously, as an urban area expands, this will be taken over and the rural urban fringe will move up. Then our land use models. Like I told you guys, you can know about them, but you don't really have to go into detail. They don't really ask them, so I don't really want you to waste all of your time on them if they're not really going to be asked. Okay, then just quickly zoom out a little bit so you can see what's going on. Okay. Okay, here we go. Then urban settlement problems. So once again, this can be one of your longer type of questions. So a lot of people are moving to urban settlements, and this is not just happening in South Africa, this is happening across the globe. Now, with that, certain problems are going to arise. Okay, and some of the most common problems are congestion, urban decay, and centralization. Okay, so if we just look at congestion first, let me just quickly go like that. The causes of this is there's just too many people using their own cars. There's not enough public transport, and it's an all-street pattern. Okay. Then the effects of this, there's going to be increased air pollution because a lot of people are driving their own cars, more accidents, more stress and health problems such as road rage. So what is the solution to this? Improve public transport and have lift schemes so everyone doesn't use their own private car. Then encourage some businesses to move out of the CBD. And personally, I think this is a lot better. It's not always the safest in the CBD, and for some people, it might be easier to get there if it's not located there. So that can definitely be a solution. And obviously, then to synchronize traffic lights, which can also help with traffic. Then our next one was urban decay. So this is where parts of the city are not looked after or are overused. The causes, the CBD moving into residential areas as it obviously grows. There's too many people living in the cities and occupied and empty buildings. So the effects of this, there are going to be slums that develop. Services and facilities are going to decline in the area. There's going to be increased pollution and the area becomes dirty and neglected because it is not looked after. So what is the solution to this? Get people in slums to help fix up the area, increase their ownership of buildings, and improve and upgrade services and facilities in the area. Then centralization, too many people and activities moving into the city, especially close to the center. The cause of this, high demand for land in the city, and once again, too many people living there. The effect of this, increased pollution, increase in health problems, increased destruction of the environment, overuse of resources, and production of too much waste. Now, what is the solution for this? Move certain functions out of the city, stricter control on all types of pollution, and develop more green belts. Now, something that they have done after COVID, since obviously that shut a lot of things down, is that something that has become very clear to a lot of businesses is that certain jobs can be done from home. So that's going to take more people off the road that don't need to commute every single day. And obviously, that is going to help. Then a lot of people don't necessarily need to be in urban areas, they can be in more rural areas or even smaller towns that obviously don't have to commute as well, which is not going to add to the problem. Okay, just quickly see. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. Then let's quickly see here. This is summary. Let's quickly go down. Okay, for economic geography, because there's something I want to say about that specifically. Obviously, know your key concepts. Now, I've told you guys quite a bit of times that always use mind the gaps. Obviously, my notes are there, but always use mind the gap. For economic geography, however, I don't want you to focus for the majority of part on the study guide, so mind the gap. Okay, obviously for the key concepts, please use it, but if you can, use my two notes. I uploaded all of these already. I'm now going to upload the video afterwards into that one as well. But please make use of these two notes that I've uploaded. The first one, the sectors of the economy, goes through all of these. And once again, this is your type of work that you have to study like a parrot. You have to memorize this. Okay, so this is going to be the factors that favor farming, that restrict or limit it, the importance of farming. It's going to go through all of the different ways for mining, for all of this. So I'm not going to go through this just because I'm basically going to repeat everything I say, because this is really a lot of memorizing work. Okay, so everything is here. One thing that they also do not really have in Mind the Gap is the apartheid industrial development strategies, or specific post-apartheid. Okay, so please just go through this as well. Okay, then for the prescribed work, don't even look at Mind the Gap because you're going to confuse yourself because there's obviously all of the work for all of the different items are in there. So for the prescribed work, please make use of this particular notes. Okay, once again, it is going to be parrot work. You're going to memorize it. For farming, we have beef this year. And you're going to know the factors that favor beef farming, the factors that hinder beef production, the contribution of beef products to the South African economy. All of those, make sure that you memorize it. The same with mining and coal. Okay, so if you were to use Mind the Gap, they are going to, because I had all of these notes are compiled out of a bunch of different sources. So that's why I'm asking you for the prescribed work to please use my notes. Okay. Then, as we know, there are four big industrial zones in South Africa. We have Gauteng, Durban, Pinetown, Southwestern Cape, and Port Elizabeth and Uitenhage. Now, yes, two of these will be prescribed to you, and obviously we know which ones it is. But like I told you guys, you need to know where the others are. You don't need to know in detail everything about them, but know the location. I know a few, I think it was about 2 years ago, it wasn't a lot of marks, I think it was 1 or 2 marks. They actually asked a question where you had to identify the districts from A to D, and we weren't really expecting it because typically they only ask about one thing. So you don't need to go into detail about each one. Just know the two that you are prescribed, but know where everyone is. Okay. Luckily, it's if you just read the name, it kind of should give you an idea. And obviously, they won't give you a drawing of a province and they tell you have to pinpoint exactly where this is. There's only 4 provinces that obviously included this, and it tells you exactly where it is. Okay, Gauteng, PWW, right in Gauteng, Southwestern Cape, it's in the name, PE Uitenhage, Eastern Cape, and Durban, Pinetown, KwaZulu-Natal. Okay, now for this year, you obviously have to know Gauteng and Southwestern Cape. Once again, this is memorizing work. Make sure that you know all of this. Know sure what the main industries is, the factors that influence it, the factors that hinders it, the economic and social impact of it, obviously the location as well. But all of this is memorizing work. So I'm not going to go through it because will literally just repeat everything I said. Okay. Then, like I said, one of the Afrikaans people sent me this. So I know it's not in English, but it's just to say something about the map work. Remember what I said in map work. Whatever calculation specifically they ask in paper 1, they will most likely not ask it again in paper 2. This has very rarely happened over several years. So in this case, they actually ask you distance. So the chance they're going to ask you distance again in paper 2 is very, very minuscule. The same with the next one, magnetic declination. They are not going to ask you magnetic declination. They might ask you, now I forgot the word. Just give me one moment. I can't believe I just forgot it. Because I still have the... No, I can't remember what it is. The one that goes with magnetic declination. Let me just quickly get my thing here. Sorry about this. Where is it? Sorry, this is gonna bother me now. Just quickly see because I know it's gonna be really annoying for me. No direction. Bearing. There we go. I can't believe I forgot it. So they're not going to ask you magnetic declination, but they can still ask you magnetic bearing. So in this case, they might give you the information for the magnetic declination and then ask you to work out the magnetic bearing. Okay. But magnetic bearing, this is something that they really like. So for that one, obviously, you hopefully still know your work for that one, but just know how it works and how to obviously to get it. But they're most likely not going to ask you these particular ones again. The same with the cross section. You will most likely not get a cross section. There's going to be other stuff that they're going to want to test. Okay, the same with GIS. I know they asked you guys about what's this in English? remote sensing. There we go. They will most likely not ask you again about remote sensing. So that hopefully makes it a little bit easier for the study work. Okay, but like I said, if you can, for your rural and urban settlements, use both my notes and the Mind the Gap. And for economic geography, try to focus just on the 2 notes that I gave you. You will see I already uploaded them. I'm now going to upload the video directly after this as well. All 5 are here, so please go check them out and make sure that you study throughout this weekend. Now, it is Friday, and I already decided that this weekend I am going to keep my phone a little bit closer to me than normally. So if you're going through your work and you are stuck somewhere, just send me a message. I might not reply immediately, but I will reply to you as soon as possible. Okay, especially since I know you guys are writing on Monday. Do you have any questions? Okay. Oh, wait. Is that a message? Oh, that's from the previous one. Okay. So if you don't have any questions, I'm not going to keep you. It is a Friday. I don't think anyone wants to be here too long. But if you guys are stuck with anything, please let me know and I'll help you. Otherwise, I will then speak to you guys on Monday. And I really hope everything goes well and that you have a really great time studying. Then good luck for the rest of your exams. I'm not sure how much you're still writing. And then I want to say I'm gonna see you guys, but obviously I'm not really gonna see you guys after this. So good luck with your exams. Okay, bye guys.